Talmor, Shishin Marachi. Talmor is my home. My family have worked the land for generations. My gran says the island does not belong to us, but we belong to the island. And we must be ready, for a great evil is coming, and death follows with it.
Listen and subscribe to the latest season of Undertow, The Harrowing, a Storyglass production presented by Realm, available wherever you get your podcasts.
The thing that I fought tooth and nail to bring my son into is Dungeons and Dragons. That is the ultimate solution to parenthood.
I'm Alexis Ohanian. In my podcast, Business Dad, I'm hoping to open up the conversation about balancing careers and family. I talked to Rainn Wilson. I wanted to learn more about Rainn's advice to play D&D with your kids. Business Dad is available now, so be sure to listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
I've got an idea. I'm going to get some fake blood. Yeah, I know. It goes downhill from here. I'm going to get some fake blood, and I'm going to put it in these capsules. And I'm going to get some medical tape, and I'm going to tape it behind my ears. And sometime during the scene, when I get the feeling, I'm going to slap my ears, and have these convulsions, and blood's just going to go everywhere.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I've got this book that's like a Bible or something like this. I think, yeah, it's a great idea, Wilbur. I didn't get anybody else's suggestions. I just said, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you didn't run that by any of your buddies.
I didn't run it by anybody. And oh well.
Hello, world, and welcome back to another episode of Thanks for Coming In. I'm your host, Jillian Clare. If this is your first time tuning in, this is a show where I speak to fellow actors about their journey in the industry, and then I make them share an embarrassing audition story with me. It's always a lot of fun. If you're not subscribed to the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to it now, and leave us some love in the form of reviews and ratings. I know I say it every time, and I know it's annoying, but hey, it's helpful. It's been a couple weeks. I hope you all are doing good out there in the world. Took an unintentional break. Didn't really know I was gonna be doing that. So I'm sorry, but we're back. Yay. What's new? Not too much is new. I guess maybe. Oh, I have something new. I was a part of this really fun podcast called Table Read, where we take these scripts that haven't been produced, and we recorded it in a studio, all of us together, a live table read, and then they put in really cool sound effects and music and all that kind of stuff afterwards. My friend Sean Sharma was the spearheader and asked me to be a part of it. So I'm in one of the scripts called Little Man, and I think there's 3 or 4 parts of it out at this point. Anyway, it's on Apple and all that fun stuff too, and it's a really fun ride, and it's a really cool concept for a podcast, so check it out. Okay, let's get to today's show. Today I have an incredible actor who has been in hundreds of things. Honestly, it's pretty freaking crazy. He was in Anchorman 2, The Founder, Hunger Games: Catching Fire. He was on Prison Break, One Tree Hill, Friday Night Lights, In the Heat of the Night, Drop Dead Diva. There's literally so many things. I can't even name them all. But today we're talking about 2 new things that he's in. First is On a Wing and a Prayer, which is on Amazon Prime. And of course, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. How cool. Here is my conversation with Wilbur Fitzgerald. And welcome to the show, Wilbur!
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Oh gosh, I'm so excited to have you on here. I, looking at all of the incredible work you've done throughout your entire career. It's amazing to me, and I love having actors on the show that have just proven that longevity and sticking to it all works out in the end.
It does, and it's as I say to a lot of actors, especially younger actors, it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a process, and as you age into certain roles, age out of certain roles. It's kind of interesting. So to embrace the changes
Yeah.
just makes it, to me, more exciting. And that's what, fortunately, I've been able to do. I mean, there have been ups and downs and slow periods, but because it's what I love to do, then I've been able to stay with it and always learn new things. And that's what's been cool about working with really quality people over the years, is learning new stuff along the way. And I'll just tell you this quick story. So several years ago, a few years ago now, I worked on the movie Sully, directed by Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And Clint gave me a nice little role in there, which was wonderful. And just watching a guy like that work so quietly on this very, very well organized set, he comes in, everything's set up. He never calls action. He'll say, "Okay, anytime now," and it's very, very calm. And then at some point he'll say, "Okay, you can stop."
Whoa.
So this one particular actor who's kind of well known for certain qualities he has as a New York kind of character and tough guy. So he had a role in there, and it kind of surprised me. He just didn't seem to be as prepared as I thought anybody would be when you're going to work for Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, like the king of Hollywood.
I mean, come on. So it was interesting. So I could tell he was not. Maybe he was nervous, and that.
Yeah.
Come on, that happens. So, the scene. They did a quick rehearsal, not much, and you could tell the guy was not quite on with his lines and everything. So nothing was said. So Clint Eastwood started the everything. Camera was rolling. He said, "Okay, anytime now." And the guy started, and you could tell he just wasn't up on his lines, but there was no stopping it. Clint just let the scene go and let it continue without saying anything. So the guy just kept kind of working it, going back and forth. And it was obvious that at some point Clint Eastwood had probably gotten what he needed, and he said, "Okay, you can stop now." So there was no embarrassment. He just didn't. It's kind of like an improv. Clint just didn't stop the scene. He just let the cameras keep rolling until the guy just came up with enough that it's like, all right.
That's such a I feel like that's such a thing that directors who are actors can relate to, because I think that the fact that he is such an incredible actor and he knows what it takes for himself to get there, for his fellow actors to get there, it makes him an actor's director, which I've always loved.
And sometimes, let's face it, you just have a lousy day. I mean, I'm not putting it on that actor, but you don't feel great, or something else is going on.
Something in your personal life. There's so many things that could be affecting how you show up to set.
That's right. But Clint handled it like because I've been on a few sets here and there where there was some yelling.
Yeah.
There was a little. I won't go into any names here, details, but it's like that doesn't help matters. That just creates more tension. And that's not
stress, and then you just.
And as an actor, you don't need that additional layer of tension.
No.
You're already.
You're already wanting to vomit half the time. Well, I'd love to go back to the start of your career and talk about what made you want to be an actor and how you got into it and how you kind of found your way.
I sort of didn't know I wanted to be an actor. Because from high school on, because I was a pretty good student, especially in certain subjects, I thought, I just think it'd be fun or cool or something to be a lawyer. So, went to college, majored in English, then went to law school, loved law school.
Wow.
But sometime during my law school years, I realized, okay, maybe, I don't know what this is going to be like after law school, but I became everybody's favorite witness in these mock trials that you had to participate in your last year of law school, because I turned out I was very good at improv, and you couldn't catch me in a lie when I was a witness. And I was funny, and so I became everybody's favorite witness because I was, I'd help them win their case. Little
Right.
did I know that that performing would sort of set something off, like, you know, I like this.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I got out of law school, went with a law firm. Still wasn't terribly excited about practicing, and being around lawyers is not the most pleasant thing in the world
No, it
necessarily.
can be pretty depressing.
You know, and I just realized at some point, you know what, this is not what I'm going to do as a career. And
Mm.
I found a class, in my hometown in Atlanta, and got into this little class and thought, oh wow, this is fun. And met an agent. And I was at the age at that time where, I'd started playing these young dads in commercials.
Mm.
And given the market we had in Atlanta, even back in the 80s, there were industrial films going on all the time,
Mm.
commercials. I fell into the whole voiceover world, which was wonderful. And when I started working, I was working all the time.
Wow.
And then I booked my first movie with Johnny Cash and Andy Griffith,
What?
called Murder in Cayuga County, and I was a lawyer, and they cast me as the prosecutor. Well, that was a great kickoff. That was back when they had movies of the week. This was a CBS movie of the week.
Wow.
So, but I was working constantly on something.
Mm.
And to me, whether it was an industrial film or commercial, it was all the same. It was acting work. And I was working on my craft,
Mm.
because some of that writing is like an industrial stuff. It's horrible. So
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah.
You got to bring it to life somehow.
Yeah.
And so that was my challenge. I didn't come into the business in the theater. Sort of wish I had, looking back, because I've worked with so many wonderful actors over the years, and they've had that great theater training, and
Mm.
I didn't have that, but I had another training ground that was pretty good.
Mm.
So
That's so amazing.
that's how I got into it. And then I spent some years in New York because I got into the whole voiceover world, which was wonderful. I did a lot of work in commercials, and then I did movie trailers, which I loved, and a
Mm.
lot of promos for stuff. And then I got into the kind of the dark world. I'll say it's not it. Well, it is a dark world. I got into doing political commercials. These horrible,
Oh.
dark things, like, talking about these guys. But I had that voice for it.
Right.
And I tell actors who, they say, oh, I'd love to do voiceovers. I said, well, I'm sure somebody told you had a lovely voice or something. It's like, yeah, they said I had a great voice. It's like, and that's good. And that's part of it. But my suggestion is work on acting first, because voiceover calls on you to do everything. And
Mhm.
it ain't just about the voice.
No, you still have to get all of the emotion that you normally would get shown on your face through your voice. And
That's right.
it's harder, in my opinion, because you don't have
Yeah.
your face
It's,
to be able to show.
in a short story in voiceover, which I had this wonderful voiceover coach out here in LA. And she would say, voiceover is a lie detector test.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. She said, for example, she was reading someone over the phone. She was coaching someone over the phone. And it was, I think, a commercial or something about steak or something. And my coach said to her, she was doing the commercial, reading it over the phone. And she said, to her, she said, you don't like meat, do you? She said, no, I'm a vegetarian. She said, that comes through loud and clear.
Mm.
And another commercial, another thing along the same way, this big, one of the big beer campaigns was being developed by this ad firm. And they had, the guys along the way had selected this woman to be the new voice. It's like, cool, great. And then the head honcho of the whole campaign listened to all the stuff that she recorded, and he said, no, no, I don't know. She's not right. I said, what do you mean? He said, she doesn't drink beer. It's like, whoa.
Wow.
He could hear that in the voice. You
Wow.
could just hear that, bringing that, and we know that as actors, even beyond voiceover, that if you bring your judgment to the script, it'll kill it, possibly. You can't do that. So you have to trick yourself sometimes into a substitution or something, but it's it's being aware of your judgment and how that comes through, both on screen, on camera, as well as in voiceover.
Yeah, I mean,
Fascinating business, isn't it?
It's wild, because the second that you even judge your own character and start making assumptions about them, you're then changing how you're going to play it. I mean, if you're playing somebody who is cheating on their spouse and you automatically have oh, well, why would they do this? Then you're already judging the character, and you're already like disconnecting yourself from what you could do with the character.
That's right. And so you have to, as my acting teacher in New York would say, I might be doing a scene or something in K. Michael Patton's class, and get through, and she said, Wilbur, what were you working on? I'd say, well, I was working on so-and-so. She said, well, I didn't see that. It's like, oh. So let's figure out a way to get in there and solve the problem. And so much of this business is problem solving.
Yeah.
And on the casting side, somebody said years ago to me, he said, casting is problem solving. It's like, oh. And I thought, yeah, I'm a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
When I walk into the room and I'm reading for a lawyer, and I'm dressed in my suit and just look, impeccable as a lawyer, immediately there's that impression, and then you see the resume. It's like, oh, he is a lawyer. Like, all right, well, we've solved that problem.
Yeah. Well, and you've seemed to played a lot of different like judges and lawyers and prosecutors, but that's because it's almost a part of you already.
It's very much a part of me, and I ended up sometimes being a consultant.
Yeah.
They say, hey, would this actually take place in the courtroom? It's like, well, so that's kind of been fun.
That's cool.
I played a lawyer in this interesting movie years ago that Robert Altman directed.
Wow.
Called The Gingerbread Man. It had a great cast, Kenneth Branagh Jr. and Robert Downey. It was a Robert Duvall. And I read for it, and I learned something that was completely different that I'd ever experienced, because I played a few lawyers. Robert Altman knew I was an attorney, and they were close to finishing casting, and he sent a note back from the casting director said, did this guy, did Wilbur did he have any honors in law school? I thought, that's a weird question. I mean, I'm playing this judge, and so fortunately I did. I was on the law review and the moot court team and a few other things. And so that answer was sent back, and it was like, okay, all right, he's my guy.
Wow.
So it was just that one of those quirks, like with Robert Altman, where he wanted, in certain roles, he wanted total authenticity plus. If he was going to cast a photographer, he wanted maybe a real photographer who was accomplished or something. So, you never know, right?
And that, kind of goes back to, I talk to a lot of young actors and ones who are currently deciding in college and whatnot. And I always say to them, like, obviously you want to study your craft, but to be a great actor, you need to study other things. You need to know all. You need to know about law. You need to know about a little bit about medicine. You need to be able to have these outside experiences outside of the performing arts that you're able to bring to the character, because that's what makes you a nuanced person.
That's exactly right. I mean, you've got to maintain that curiosity about other things. And if you happen to get cast in a good role where you're a doctor, I've played a doctor, a neurosurgeon several times, do some research, because you could easily end up adding to the character, adding to the script, because you've read and you know how certain things about a neurosurgeon. And I'll give you kind of an interesting for me, it was an interesting example. Recently, I worked on this movie called On a Wing and a Prayer, based on a true story. Dennis Quaid, Heather Graham, wonderful true story now on Amazon Prime. And so I'm playing this pilot of this private plane. And we take off, everything's fine. I look like I'm this kind of this older pilot who's in good shape. And at about 9,000 feet, I keel over dead with a heart attack.
Oh my God.
And so then the adventure really begins. Because in those situations, 99.9% where you have a pilot go out like that, the plane crashes, everybody dies.
Yeah.
This was a true story, and the big exception to that, because they end up, it's a great story, end up landing the plane. Like I say, based on a true story.
Wow.
The cool thing for me as an actor was I'm not a pilot. But Dennis Quaid, who was in my right seat in this twin-engine plane, Dennis is a pilot, and he's an accomplished pilot. And he actually flies as one of his plane. He actually flies this particular plane in the movie, this King Air 200. He's, like I said, he's a really accomplished pilot. He's been doing this for years and years. So I'm sitting there as this actor flying the plane, doing various things during takeoff. Dennis is over there and suddenly becomes my consultant. He's like, no, push here. No, push your hand here. No, you do this. It's like, wow, what an interesting bonus I had.
Yeah.
With this wonderful actor who ends up being my consultant as the pilot. So
yeah, I mean your hobbies, your other interests, it all helps you. It helps your fellow actors. It helps tell the story. It's so easy to get caught in like the entertainment world and think only about acting, or I need to get my next job, or I need to do this. And it's like, no, you need to have a full life so that you can bring that in.
Definitely as full a life as possible, because you bring so much more to it. And I think the other thing is we're always looking. Some people have to deal with nerves sometimes a lot. We're always looking for ways to actually be confident in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And immediately step in and be part of the team, be one of the equals. And of course, my way of doing that is about one thing, and that's preparation. Because let's face it, the more prepared you are, the less chance you're going to be thrown by anything that happens. Or if when I was working on Curious Case of Benjamin Button years ago, interesting movie, and I was in a really tight time situation because as soon as I left the set, I had to fly back to Dallas to work on Prison Break. I was in the middle of that, but I knew I was in a time crunch to get out of there and go back to Dallas. And it was so wonderful because I was so prepared that once the director started saying, okay, now take that out of the scene and put this in, and I was suddenly moving lines around and stuff. You couldn't throw me no matter what, because I was so prepared. And I guess it kind of hit me that day. This is where intense preparation and rehearsal can make all the difference in the world.
What is that? What does that process look like for you? Do you have certain things that you do that is part of how you prepare? Like, do you write it all down? Do you just read it 1,000 times? What's your thing?
I do, depending on the role. I always write it out. I make notes. I've got some good actor friends, and we'll talk about it, because the more you know about it, the more not only confidence you'll have, but I think it also will allow you, if the scene, sometimes you try to get away with something. I always do, by improvising some or adding something to the scene. So the more you know that material and understand that material, the better prepared you're going to be to shift and make it more interesting and make it and make it yours and own it. Because you've got to, I mean, 1 or 2 lines, that's different, but in a real role, you've got to own that role. And that's just repetition and preparation and over and over and over until you've got it down so much. You go in there, you don't act it, you go in there and live it. You know?
You have worked on so many things that I love. And it would be impossible to go over all of them in 45 minutes. But I would love to know just what role, let's say, in your TV career has really stuck with you through the years? Because there's been so many, and I can't even imagine how you decide.
Well, thank you. I got to say, early on, I have to give credit to the late, great Carroll O'Connor, because I worked on this Southern show in the heat of the night. I did something like 40 episodes, and I was the prosecutor. And when you have a long run like that over several seasons, you become not only part of that family, but you really know that character. And so that was a significant thing for me as a younger actor, to have a role like that gave me a lot of confidence, that exposed me to a lot of Carroll O'Connor's friends, like George C. Scott would come in. Wow. The late Burgess Meredith, who was a character, would come in. So Carroll had all this influence with these old friends. Claude Akins came in and played this bad guy who kidnapped my daughter. So, and the thing about that is, when you deal with a lot of these old Hollywood greats, these character actors, like, for example, I was doing this scene with Claude Akins, great old character actor, from Westerns, Planet of the Apes, everything. Terrific guy. We're about to do a scene where he shoots me, and he knows my close-up is coming up. So he said, Wilbur, why don't you go back to the makeup trailer and have them add some liner under both of your eyes, just right under here. He said, it'll make your eyes pop out in the close-up. I thought, oh, thanks. So I went back and did that. Wow. So many terrific actors will give you these little tips that they've just learned over the years. Yeah. And that's what's great about working with so many experienced people. They just give you these little things like, oh, okay. Or somebody will say, Wilbur, in this scene, why don't you walk a little bit faster? Because it'll be slower on camera. So faster you walk, the better it'll show up, and the more you'll be in the scene. It's like, oh, I didn't know. Okay, thanks.
You've shared some really cool stories from people who are legends and current legends. And I mean, it really has sounded like you've had some truly incredible experiences throughout your career, and you've been blessed to work with like really nice people, which is nice to hear.
Yeah, mostly very nice people. And I tell people, I said, usually the bigger they are, the nicer they are. And I think we all find that to be the case.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back.
You can shop from anywhere doing pretty much anything. You might shop while working, eating, or even listening to this podcast. And however you shop, we all know and love the thrill of the hunt. But do you also know how to get the thrill of the best deals? Because Rakuten shoppers do. With Rakuten, they get the deals they love with the most savings and cash back. And you can get it too. Start getting cash back at your favorite stores like Sephora, Nike, and even Expedia if you're looking to get some travel in. And getting cash back doesn't mean you have to miss out on sales, because those can just be stacked right on top. It's easy to use and based on a simple idea. Stores pay Rakuten for sending them shoppers, and Rakuten shares the money with you as cash back through PayPal or check. Download the free Rakuten app and never miss a deal. Or go to Rakuten.com to start getting the most bang for your buck. That's Rakuten.
As a podcast network, Our focus is bringing you shows you love to listen to. But we also sell merch related to those shows. And partnering with Shopify has made that both possible and simple for us to do. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor adventures, Shopify helps you sell everywhere because they've got you covered from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. What's so fantastic about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, they provide everything you need to get control of your business so you can take it to the next level. Businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm. That's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/realm.
And back to the show. Well, on this show, we like to share audition stories.
Yes.
That can be something funny that's happened in the room, something tragic, the role that got away. Is there a story that you would like to share with the listeners?
There is one story,
Yes.
and it gives you insight into how both reckless I can be, how bold I can be, how creative I think I am sometimes. It's like, okay, so I'm reading for this movie, took place a number of years ago, directed by this French director, Eric Vallet. Hell of a nice guy. So I have a callback for this role as this like a priest type character.
Mm.
And it's kind of a horror film, and there's some sort of demon virus in this being passed along in the cell phone that kills people. You know, one of those crazy things. The movie's called One Missed Call.
One missed call.
And so I have a callback, in-person callback for the director and the casting director who I knew. So in the scene, this priest he's doing an exorcism, trying to get the demon out of the phone. And it doesn't work because the demon takes him over, and he's going, or it just takes him over, and he's in convulsions, and blood starts coming from his ears and all this. And I thought, oh boy, well, what do I do with this? I thought, I've got an idea. I'm going to get some fake blood. Yeah, I know. It goes downhill from here. I'm going to get some fake blood, and I'm going to put it in these capsules. And I'm going to get some medical tape, and I'm going to tape it behind my ears. And sometime during the scene, when I get the feeling, I'm going to slap my ears, and have these convulsions, and blood's just going to go everywhere.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I've got this book that's like a Bible or something like this. I think, yeah, it's a great idea, Wilbur. I didn't get anybody else's suggestions. I just said, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you didn't run that by any of your buddies.
I didn't run it by anybody. And oh well. So I started thinking about it though, like the day of the callback, and I thought, oh man, it's kind of hot. What if that tape fails and I'm in the middle of the audition and the blood kind of like drops down and hangs there like an earring or something? It's like, I better not chance that. So I said, plan B. I'm going to put these blood capsules inside the Bible thing that I'm using during the exorcism. I'm going to tape them inside the book. And if I get the feeling during the audition, I will slap the book, break the vessels, and then kind of do something to have blood coming out of my ears or something like that. So that was my plan. Go in the audition, have the director, lovely guy, and somebody's videoing it over there. Well, the casting director, who I knew, had stepped out, and she stepped out during my audition, during my callback. So sure enough, I get in there, and I'm just doing this crazy thing, and I slap the book, and the blood goes everywhere, and it's all, my face, my ears. And I get through, and the director just kind of looks at me, And about that time, the casting director comes back in the room, like I say, who I know very well. And she sees me. She goes, Wilbur, what happened? What happened to you? And the director very calmly looks over at her and says, special effects. And I thought, okay, well, I didn't get that role, but he kind of rewarded me for my whatever it was, my ingenuity and my stupidity and my craziness, and gave me another role, which was pretty nice, actually. So I don't know the moral of that story other than you still have to take chances. You got
I mean, clearly it kind of worked out.
It worked out, but you've just got to do things that are within some measure of sanity.
But I love that you like nearly gave that casting director a heart attack. She probably thought that you had like some sort of thing happen while she was outside the room.
So like I'd injured myself because there was blood all over my face and my ears, and I just certainly didn't tell her what I was going to do.
Well, no.
So she just saw the aftermath, and it took a while to clean myself up. But it's like, okay, well, I did it. What the heck?
Yeah, you did it, and you ended up with a role. So who cares?
Ended up with a role. It was a fun role. Yeah.
Wow.
It was good with Ed Burns and Margaret Cho. Anyway, we had a good time.
That's amazing. Honestly, that's maybe one of my favorite stories I've heard. I mean, that takes some like serious guts to pull something off like that.
Yeah, and you just have to be, as one of my photographer friends who ended up teaching me how to shoot. That's a whole other story. Taught me how to shoot video. I'm very good at shooting these video auditions because I learned from this incredible photographer who taught me how to shoot video cinematically. So my stuff just really pops, really looks good. And that's the challenge we have today as actors.
Yeah.
Is what do we do? We're not going in the room. Mm-hmm. How do we make this? How do we get their attention in the first 3 seconds and hold their attention? Mm-hmm. It's a challenge.
Before we go, we have to talk about Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, 1, it's a classic, and 2, you're playing a classic character. So how was it working with Kathy Bates and Rachel McAdams and just bringing this, truly quintessential book for so many young women to life?
And I don't think when I first got this project, because I didn't read that book growing up, and I just didn't realize the magnitude and the power of this book and the influence that it's had on more than one generation now.
So many.
50 years ago. And the author, Judy Blume, who was at the premiere the other night, what a lovely woman.
Oh.
I mean, just and was very complimentary to me, which meant the world. Yeah. But working with Bates, oh my God. You talk about a force of nature. This woman, so much fun to work with. And she is hilarious in the movie. And so when we first met on the set, she was very honest. She said, I'm a little nervous. I said, what? She said, well, I haven't worked in a couple of years. This was in 21, so it was after the pandemic, and she just hadn't worked like a lot of people. She said, I'm just kind of nervous, so let's just go off and get to know each other and talk. I said, yeah. So we did, and we connected because I'm her boyfriend in the movie, so we have to have this lovely sort of romantic connection, So we got to sort of know each other and talked and everything. And it was a blast. And it shows on the screen. She is just remarkable. And then there's Rachel, who is just radiant.
Yeah.
And I just sort of discovered her depth. And she's wonderful in the movie. I told her the other night after the premiere, I said, I couldn't help but think the whole time I was watching you, what a wonderful mother you must be. Because she has a couple of children.
Yeah.
And that was what came across to me. She's so real. She's got this way of expressing herself is just it's so touching. And the movie itself, I thought, I'm a guy. Is this movie going to really be something that I like? Well, first of all, you've got James Brooks as a producer. I mean, come on.
Doesn't get much better.
And then you've got Kelly Fremont Craig as the director, who's so smart. The movie is hilarious, and it's also very touching because there are a lot of universal themes in there, like that any person would have as growing up. It's like, what do you mean I'm going to be a Christian, or what do you mean I'm going to be a Jew or a Catholic? You know, there's a lot of confusion during those adolescent years, and it really comes out in this movie. It's so sweet, but it is very, very funny.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
So my wonderful manager, Christine McLean, and I went, and I was taken great care of by Lionsgate. Had a fun time on the beige or the gold carpet, as it is now, you know. And it was one of those great sort of parties after where you actually had a chance to spend time with producers and Judy Blume, James Brooks, and so it was just, and it was one of these things where you knew when you went to the party, the movie had been so good, the screening had been so good and so successful. Nobody was looking around like, oh, what do we say? It just wasn't that good. We're supposed to have a good time here. I mean, the spirit, the energy in that room was unbelievable because the movie really is that good.
Oh,
I gotta say.
Oh, I cannot wait. It's gonna be so good.
I feel very fortunate, really very lucky to be a part of this because my character he's kind of a little bit of a goofy guy, which is fine by me. And so, and I have some nice time up on the screen with Bates and Rachel and all that. So, there is just that element in our business of luck.
Yeah.
And you have nothing to do with it. It just sometimes happens. So.
Yep. It's so true. Speaking of luck, do you have anything else that you're working on currently or that is coming out soon?
I have some possibilities. There is I just read for another Clint Eastwood movie.
I just saw that he was going to be directing one at 93. That is so wild.
Can you believe it?
No.
And this is a guy who will not be sitting over there in a rocking chair.
Right.
This is a guy who will be directing.
Oh, wild.
Movies, yeah. We'll see what happens on that. But I read for a nice role, and I have a few other things that are kind of out there simmering. So it's nice. Feels good. And I feel I feel more inspired than ever to do that. I love doing this work. And I got to say, back to the video, because I shoot really wonderful video for my auditions, I'm probably more excited about the audition process than I ever have been. As much as I'd like to go back into the room and do what I do, it's shooting the video is really fun to me. So that's been a big learning experience. And it's interesting, it gives me a different perspective when I'm on a set, because I love talking to DPs. And I love to talk about lighting, because that's all evolved and changed so much in the last 5 to 10 years. And so, the more you understand the whole process going on around you, I think the better actor you'll become.
100%.
Because my way of looking at, and the other thing I do want to mention that I'm very proud of, because 14 years ago, I worked on creating the tax credits, tax incentives in Georgia.
Oh my gosh.
That's where I got a special Emmy a few years ago. Me and 3 other people met with the governor at that time and gave our proposal. We came up with this idea, this logo of the Georgia peach that would be put in movies and TV shows to brand the state. And so, because we were sort of on the verge of about to lose our business at that time to Louisiana, because they had changed their incentive formula. And suddenly between Louisiana and Georgia, there was a wide enough gap where the business would probably shift more towards Louisiana. So we met with the governor, gave our proposal for an increased incentive, putting in the Georgia logo, et cetera, et cetera. He loved it. He made us jump through the hoops and create, an ROI, return on investment report, which we did. And eventually he liked it and he said, hey, if you can get it passed, I won't veto it. We said, that's fair enough.
Wow.
And we did. And it's created quite an industry in Georgia.
Yeah. So, thousands of jobs. Thousands of jobs, a lot of brick and mortar studios, none of which are incentivized. They're just there to respond to all the work, all the production work that's there. So I'm very proud of that, because to me, this business becomes about not just being an actor, but it becomes about the crew. It becomes about all the people who are your family when you go back to these sets. You're an actor, but you're part of the whole team, and that's fun to me. You're part of the larger picture.
Everybody. It's fun.
It's really fun. It has been such a joy talking to you, and I feel like I could talk to you for hours about so many different things. But how can people follow you? Do you have social media so that they can keep up with what you're doing?
I am on Instagram.
There we go.
I'm back on Instagram because I was hacked last year by some character in Nigeria, and they stole my whole account and started soliciting money. It's like, what the hell? So, but I'm back on as Wilbur T. Fitzgerald.esq, meaning Esquire.
Esquire.
ESQ. Wilbur T. Fitzgerald.esq.
Love that. Well, everyone should follow you. I'm so excited to see your new film, and I'm so excited to see what else you do. And it's been just such a lovely, lovely time getting to know you. And
thank you.
Again, I feel like I'm going to have you on another time to talk about everything else, because there's so much to talk.
We'll do part 2.
Part 2, coming soon, one of these days.
What a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Thanks again to Wilbur for coming on the show. Make sure to check out On a Wing and a Prayer, which is on Amazon Prime. And of course, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Hits theaters April 28th. Go see it. I am so excited. If you want to see the whole interview, you can check out our Patreon. Those links are in the show notes, and you can become a subscriber and see us talk face to face. Tune in next week for another fun-filled episode with another embarrassing story. And as always, thanks for coming in.
Hi, I'm Alexis Ohanian. You may know me as one of the co-founders of Reddit, but more recently, a large part of my identity is being a father to my 2 wonderful daughters. In my podcast, Business Dad, I'm hoping to open up the conversation about balancing careers and family. The one thing I constantly hear successful people say, without fail, is that they wish they'd spent more time with their kids. That's time no one can get back. So I decided to create Business Dad, to engage in the conversation about how we're spending our time now, providing a forum for successful dads to share their joys and challenges of being a working parent. You'll get to hear from a wide range of business dads, from Rainn Wilson and Guy Raz to Todd Carmichael and Shane Battier. And while this podcast will talk about business and will definitely be featuring dads, I think everyone can learn something from these incredible conversations as we unpack the expectations we all have about careers, relationships, and ourselves. Business Dad is available now, so be sure to listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.